I'm Jim Check. You're watching Now Media and the Really Big Show. With me, Ian Burns, in our nation's capital. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan. And we got lots to talk about on the Really Big Show. And we're starting to get a good audience, which is great. And some of the negative comments are starting to come, so that's great too. Not that we love negative comments, but by all means, comment away. You won't find that on the other news outlets across Canada. On today's show, Poilievre says Carney's German deal, all show business. Carney's European trip really nets a lot more questions than answers. LNG now viewed differently by the Liberals. And Poilievre said he would fire Macklem. He's coming late to that game. I said he should have been fired a while ago. Youth unemployment in recession territory. More secrets from the Liberals, this time with Ukrainian aid money. Government employees binge on TV. CBC won't share their streaming numbers with that GEM streaming service. Why not is a better question on that one. BC business is at a breaking point. We did a couple of good interviews there, and we're going to talk about that a lot more here on the Really Big Show. We're going to kick it off, though. Carney, on his European trip, he also stopped in NATO and said that he would extend the NATO mission in Latvia for 3 more years. We talked about that a little bit yesterday, saying that, if we have 1,200 troops in NATO, that means we have to have about, 3,600 at home so we can rotate them around. But, we have a tough time filling in the complement. And then, if they're talking about boots on the ground in Ukraine, and then they use the Canadian military a lot for firefighting as well.
I mean, it's not an easy job, really, is it, to go there? And you're on the border with Russia right there in Latvia. The Russians still have a bit of an imperial eye cast on the Baltic states, Latvia being one of them. So, bit of a risky job. But I thought the interesting thing is, when he announced this, right away my thought was, with what gear? Not just where they're going to get the soldiers from, but what equipment are they going to use? And then Murray Brewster, who in my opinion is one of the best legacy reporters that remains at the CBC, immediately he's come out this morning with an article headlined, "Canada scrambles to fill equipment gap as it extends Latvian mission." So sure enough, they don't have the equipment, do they? And it's a very interesting article, actually, talking about all the old kit that they have. And yeah, it's just, as with everything with the Canadian military lately, it's, potentially embarrassing, isn't it? It's a potential fiasco waiting to happen.
Yeah, we talked about a while ago there too that they have 300 Canadian military that defend an area in the north here 7 times the size of France. And I think we did the story a while ago that the sleeping bags, you could get better ones at Canadian Tire. They weren't even good enough for the winter. So I mean, we're under-equipped, underpaid, and no attention paid to our military. But $2 billion he re-announced there that he's going to give to Ukraine for drones.
Something that you'd think we would want. But I mean, I understand, obviously it makes sense that we would give them to Ukraine. They are in a sort of life or death situation. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a lot of unguarded territory or barely guarded territory. I think drones would be quite useful, wouldn't they? But I don't know. But I have to recommend the Murray Brewster article talking about sheds filled with Leopard 2A4 tanks, many of them from the late 1980s. It's just like, well, I mean, then again, I don't know. I mean, the Russians apparently are sending in kit from the 1950s to go and actually engage in warfare in Ukraine. So I don't know, maybe they would be advanced by Russian standards.
Well, let's listen into Mark Carney talk about the military, and they're talking about buying some more subs, because the subs we do have, we have 4 diesel-powered subs, and we bought some of them from in a UK garage sale, and I think we were sailing 2 of them home from UK when we bought them, and I think that was a long time ago as well. And both of them lit on fire as we were sailing them home, and we asked for our money back, and the UK said, no. It had a bumper warranty on it, since we couldn't see it anymore. That was your problem. And I think only 1 is in service. But let's listen to Mark Carney talk about, they're looking to purchase more submarines. And this time, I think South Korea is one of the places they're looking at.
I just wanted a couple of things, just to get your first quick impressions about your tour of the submarine manufacturing facility, what you made of it, CEO saying, hey, maybe we could build these boats in Canada. So quick thoughts on that. And then on the ports, thank you for clarifying your remarks from this morning about the Port of Montreal might be first out of the gate, but Port of Churchill, maybe people are quite excited about the possibility of LNG coming out of Churchill. That, as you said, needs pretty much a brand new port. Is that a C5 project? And what is it about these ports that get them to the top of the list? Easy to do, you'll get the approvals. A couple of things on that would be great.
So let me say a couple of things, and let me preface I'm going to answer your question best I can, but I want to preface it from with the following important point, which is we are running a process. We're running a transparent, open, fair process. We had two bids, the German-Norwegian bid that we visited today, and also a Korean bid from Hanwha. That made the bar in terms of the capabilities and so we've accelerated the process because of that. That's the first point. And I'm looking forward to visiting with colleagues the Hanwha facility. And just to be clear, I mean, the experts will be making these decisions in case anyone's worried that I think I've developed a deep understanding of submarine warfare from playing Battleship when I was 12 years old. But what is striking about this situation, what we saw today, first off, the level of complexity of these of the submarines is considerable. It's more complex. The minister and I were discussing with the officials, more complex than the most complex aircraft in terms of the submarineomics, if I can put it that way. Secondly, the ability to operate under the Arctic ice for weeks on end. In fact, the binding constraint is food. As opposed to fuel, air, water, any other factor. And this goes to today's topic, the importance of interoperability with other fleets, and it reinforces what we're talking about today, which is the risks that come, the very real risks that come. I'm going to pick Russia because they're the principal actor from the eastern flank, but also that Arctic flank and the necessity of doing this. So those are three impressions, if I may. And of course, as I said before, the industrial benefits are important for Canada, and the ability to have components and build out from that is there. Yes, I'll finish. On the ports, I think you heard my answer on Montreal and Contrecoeur. With respect to Churchill, what's interesting about Churchill, and this is why it's important, and I think there's a bit more where it's one of the first potential ones, but there is much more to it than Contrecoeur in terms of what it potentially unlocks. So it unlocks, as you just said, LNG. It unlocks, and I salute Premier Canu's initiative here, it unlocks major Indigenous leadership and participation. It potentially unlocks pathways for critical minerals and links into Europe. So it has an element, and I'll finish with this point because I know I need to finish. What are one of the elements that get projects up to the level of national interest? Diversification. Diversification across provinces, diversification of market.
Are you still awake?
My little daughter, who isn't 2 yet, will be 2 in a few months. She has this silly little thing where she goes because she's learned that means sleep, and that was spinning in my head. It was just on repeat, just like. But I mean, I did perk up when he used the word submarineomics. That was a good one. I think that was a highlight there. But I mean, God bless the man. He just seems like he's freewheeling, doesn't it? It just seems like he's just making it up. I mean, anyone that's been to university or even like high school, and you see somebody get asked a question, they don't really know the answer. That's how they answer it, isn't it? Every time. It's like it's quite funny to see, but it's also sad, isn't it, when you think about it?
Keep adding words, and and then plus then you try to dialogue to make a buddy with the reporter there. Thank you for the question, and my Battleship days when I was a youngster. What does that happen?
What is he on about? But another thing that I find quite strange, there's all this like joy and celebration of using the Arctic or using Hudson Bay to get natural resources out there, including gas, heaven forfend. I just feel like wasn't that supposed to be the absolute like end of the universe, that was even happening, that there was even enough sort of melted ice to try to get through there. But apparently that's cool now,
You know
especially
what's
from this
missing?
guy who like sort of defined himself based on his climate change policies.
Do you know what's missing in this conversation when he talks about submarines is the N word, nuclear. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like he says, the
he
submarines can stay
he
down
did a
for
Donald
weeks.
Trump there, didn't he?
Hey, they stay down for weeks. The nuclear subs can stay down for years. Well, at least a year they
Well,
can stay.
it's not just that, is it? It's also, like, as you've mentioned a number of times, it's about the sound that they make. But like Mark Carney, I'm certainly not a submarine expert, so I don't know if it's possible now to have really quiet diesel subs. But I mean,
What do you
from
think?
my understanding, that is one of the massive advantages of a nuclear sub, isn't it? Is it's a bit quieter.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Anyway.
Also, I mean, just the independence, isn't it? That the sort of autonomy. That's the whole point with the Trident nuclear system that the Americans have and the British. The whole point is that they're nuclear subs because they can go off on adventures by themselves, and the homeland can be nuked theoretically, and they're still there, ready to pose a threat to whoever drops the
Use them.
nukes.
They used the subs in the Iran strike there. They used tomahawks off the subs, right? So they just surface, fire away, and then they go back underneath. And here's he does explain that on the sunglasses, though, but we're going to listen to the environmentalists there here talking about LNG, like they discovered LNG. But let's listen in.
I think there was a view prior to a few years ago that the need for natural gas would be relatively minor and relatively short term. And I think what we all realize post the Ukraine, post what's happening with AI, that natural gas is going to be a transition fuel that's in greater demand in Germany and for a longer period of time. Canada has the opportunity to be a great partner to Germany in that regard. What has changed is, as of June, Canada started shipping its first LNG shipments. We have the enviable situation of producing the lowest carbon footprint natural gas of any country in the world. It's because of the way we liquefy the natural gas. We do it with clean energy. And so that's a tremendous opportunity to work together with Germany to deal with the energy transition Germany has and supply a great product that's low in carbon and produced in conjunction with First Nations.
So that was Tim Hodges, the Minister of Energy. And he explained why he's wearing the glasses earlier in that clip there. He says that he had cataract surgery, so we were calling him Men in Black there. So that's the reason for the glasses, I guess.
Yeah, he's saying he doesn't mean to look like Bono, so he went for the Bono angle. I always thought it was more like the Matrix, but there you go.
When he talks about they've discovered a need now because of Russia. Well, when the Germans came begging for the LNG a couple of years ago, that was the need then. That was the need. And Mark Carney was the economic advisor. And the same with Japan. They came begging for the LNG then because of the Ukraine war.
Indeed. I mean, that's the question. And I would even take it back a little further than that, where he tried to co-opt everybody, didn't he? He tried to say, we all thought that LNG was going to be very much a short-term thing before the invasion of Ukraine. That's not true. We didn't all think that. And that's not just people who are experts in energy. Many experts that even I'm familiar with were saying for a long time, they were constantly banging that drum that gas was going to be needed for a long time, and that renewables and nuclear and so on weren't going to do it by themselves. But it's just this idea that he can just recruit us all. And, you say, we all made a mistake, didn't we? That's something that Justin Trudeau used to do, where he or his government would make a gigantic mistake and then say, look what we all did. We all used to think this. Like, we all used to think it was okay to dress up as Indians and Arabs for parties and things like that. It's like, no, we didn't. And it's also not true that everybody thought that gas was like not long for this world. I mean,
But
I just
still,
find it I find it hard to swallow, you know, and it is the same old thing again and again, and that's before even mentioning what you just mentioned, which is that Mark Carney was advising Justin Trudeau at that time. It's not like he's got clean hands, and Mark Carney was saying and writing much more extreme things than that at that time as well.
yeah, the Northern Gateway pipeline, a lot of that decision by the Liberals was under the advice of Mark Carney. He was very vocal on kiboshing the Northern Gateway pipeline, very vocal on that. And they're still using the words. They're couching LNG. They're saying it's a transitional fuel, and they want to make it clean. And they're all like all those words, and that they're putting around it. And instead of just saying, oh, we're going to ship LNG, and plus Churchill is still not a 12-month-a-year port, right? And there's no denying that.
It's just a few
where's
months,
the
isn't it?
investment in nuclear icebreakers unless they're going to beg the Americans after they slag them all the time and say, can we borrow yours? Because we don't have one.
And it's also, again, that elephant in the room that we try and discuss every time, which is why are they looking at Hudson Bay anyway? I mean, I know it's very cool, and I really like in a geopolitical way, a geopolitical sense. It's like it's a very cool option to have, isn't it?
Yeah.
But when you look at the map of Canada, I think the elephant in the room is, I'm looking at a map, by the way, if you're wondering what I'm looking at. It's Quebec, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that is the gateway to Europe. And then so we can look at Hudson Bay and say, oh yeah, we'll just go around here. It's like, and we're not coming anywhere near you, Quebec. Please don't get excited. But it's kind of, you could probably scale this up a lot quicker if you just went through Quebec. But obviously that has to be treated with like kid gloves, doesn't it? We have to be so sensitive about the sensibilities of the Quebecois.
Well, they just likely know that they can't get it done because
Exactly, yeah.
And Pierre Poilievre put out, said much media hype about Mark Carney signing that joint declaration of intent, and that's because that is in the print there. What does it mean? He says nothing. He says read the fine print. It's just not legally binding. And the Germans were asking, and we played it yesterday. They were asking, like, what can you do now? Like, not 5 years and what can you do now? And we've kiboshed ourselves, like that lost decade of not allowing those pipelines to be built, because you can't just actually, if you say you're going to sell it, because right now what we can do is sell it to the Americans then can mark it up and sell it to the Europeans. That's what we can do now. And the Polish guy laughed about it. Remember yesterday, the Polish ambassadors laughed.
Yeah.
And and then somebody also pointed out that Brookfield actually makes money off of that arbitrage as well. So it goes through some of the Brookfield pipes to get into the U.S. and so somebody makes money on it.
Indeed, but I mean, you say they need it now. I would say, at the very, very least, they needed it 3 years ago, didn't they? When Russia invaded Ukraine and then Nord Stream pipeline was blown up. That pipeline, it was a lifeline, would be a better way to describe it. That was, that was kind of the origin point for the German economy. That was the foundation of the whole German economy. Is that energy that they got from Russia there? That was blown up and destroyed. They completely, well, almost entirely disconnected themselves from Russia. That's when they came to beg Justin Trudeau. And obviously nothing happened. And then here we are several years later, and they're saying, like, come on, please, as fast as you can. And they get instead, maybe in 5 years, once we've consulted the right people and spent a very long time thinking about it.
Let's play this clip here from Pierre Poilievre on this deal.
Mr. Carney has noticed my proposal from 3 years ago to develop the port of Churchill, which I proposed back in the spring of 2022. But what I find incredible is that he has been in power for 170 days, and not only is there not a single shovel in the ground on any of these projects, there's not even firm proposals for these projects. Let me put this into context. He was in Germany. The Germans built, from concept to completion, an entire LNG import terminal in 194 days. That's about how long Mark Carney has been Prime Minister. And he still doesn't even know what projects he wants to build, or how he's going to build them, or which companies are going to do the building. So what I think you're going to see from Mr. Carney is more big promises without any action. It's more liberal show business rather than getting it done. And I would say, don't confuse activity with achievement. Mr. Carney has been frantically jetting around the world doing photo ops and signing phony declarations that are unenforceable and have no money attached to them. But in 170 days, he doesn't have a single project underway, while $60 billion of investment, Canadian money, has fled our country, mostly to the United States, impoverishing our people and enriching foreign workers. So what I'm saying to Mr. Carney is I'm extending the hand of friendship to all parties. Adopt the Canadian Sovereignty Act, which will rapidly legalize pipelines, mines, LNG plants, ports, open our economy up to the world. It will get rid of the capital gains tax on any reinvestment that is done in Canada to make our economy roar. Our workers will have paychecks that grow. Our economy will be self-reliant. And I say to Mr. Carney, steal my ideas. Take the credit for it. I'll help you write the bill. You can be the one to introduce and pass it. Let's just get it done. It's time to stop stopping and start starting.
And Liberals would say, more slogans, because, I mean, that makes sense to me. Let's get some stuff done. But
I mean, he's right to point it out. He's been saying it for a long time himself, and you know, he's relatively new on the scene, at least as a party leader. But you can go back decades and see these things being said. You know, it's not like it's his idea and he's the original thinker behind all this. He's just espoused it as a party leader, which makes it somewhat novel. But it goes back a very long time, doesn't it? And the question is, you know, the art historian Kenneth Clark, you know, he did this very famous TV series called Civilization, and he was looking at like architecture, and he said, if you want to know what a people really believed in and really stood for, don't look at what they wrote about themselves. Look at what they built. Look at what they actually did. And I feel like it's a bit less grandiose to apply it to the Liberal Party. But look at the Liberal Party. Not what they've said. What have they actually done and built? And the reality that I see is they've built barriers around the status quo. And that is their objective, I feel. So Poilievre is against the status quo to some extent anyway. And I feel like Carney is completely in favor of it. And certainly Justin Trudeau was. And that's why nothing happens, even though we're constantly hearing, aren't we? We're constantly hearing that things are going to be done, and yet they never are.
Yeah, and I'd say the same thing for the NDP in British Columbia. I mean, just it is status quo. Nothing of any substance that you could name has been done, and that's the big thing. Chrystia Freeland said it herself in her own words that the Liberals wasted a decade on virtue signaling and identity politics. I mean, she said those words, that they wasted the decade, and they seem to be, 170 days into wasting the next term here. So, like, when are they going to actually get something done? Like, there's a lot of pressure, I think, and they're going to announce the thing when Parliament opens. Supposedly they got a plan, and they're going to do things. We're going to see if it's just a plan to plan, or if it's an actual something is going to get done. I'm going to bet on it's a plan to plan.
But he mentioned, Poilievre there mentioned the Germans. There are a few countries you could mention, but since Germany's all the rage, why not? He talked about how the Germans built that LNG terminal very quickly after, the destruction of Nord Stream, and they had this energy crisis. Yeah, they did, because they were in a crisis, and the German elite, who were completely worthless, one of the worst ruling classes on earth, so stupid, so foolish. Just look at Angela Merkel as an example. But they said, all right, this is our entire economy going down the drain. Let's do something. This is actually an emergency. And then they did it. They did it, not just that, but they did loads of things. And they've tried. They have actually tried, the Germans, and they've gone quite quickly. And then we have the exact same language from Mark Carney and the Liberals about how we're in a war. This is an emergency. The Americans want to break us so they can own us and all the rest of it. And we're going to do things at speeds we didn't think possible and all the rest of it. But where are the results? And I think Poilievre is, again, I mean, he's right to point it out. As we've said a number of times, he is a very astute opposition leader. He's really, really good. He's a lot better than his predecessors. I think it's very noticeable. But then the question for Poilievre is, you're so good as an opposition leader, and on the economy, he seems to be a few years ahead of the Liberals, who eventually join in with what he says. But all that considered, why is he still considerably down in the polls? Why did he still lose the election? It's kind of, Poilievre has a lot of questions to ask himself as well.
And he also pointed out, they put out a statement today on that, we've talked about this clean fuel tax that in Poilievre is now calling it carbon tax 2.0. And we've talked about it in the past that they're going to, this clean fuel tax, it's another carbon tax hiding in a different name. They love to rebrand things. That's what the rebranding is kind of a theme of today. We're going to talk about a little bit later too on rebranding, but they're rebranded this thing and it's going to add 17 cents a liter by 2030. And that's according to the outgoing PBO office there. The announcement comes as Poilievre affirms his top priority for fall. So he's going to go after this carbon tax, second carbon tax as he calls it, because it's going to add about $136 more per household every year. And that's.
I think this is what when we interviewed Dan McTague a while ago, and he was going on about a second carbon tax. I think this is what he meant, isn't it? And back then it was a fairly obscure idea, but I feel like, I mean, it's reality, but it was like, in terms of how it was being discussed, it was quite obscure. But I feel like now that the other carbon tax, the consumer one, has been removed, the Tories are, they're going to make hay with this, aren't they? They're going to enjoy this.
And then this is the real estate, and we've talked about this lots, and I've pointed it out many times. Tiff Macklem, during COVID there, said Canadians can rest assured and go out and take out that mortgage, and the Bank of Canada will not be raising interest rates into the foreseeable future. And then in unprecedented fashion, they raised those interest rates 19-fold in unprecedented fashion. It was like a great bear trap, and many Canadians now really, really stuck as their mortgages come for renewal, and their payments have gone up where they don't even have $200 of leeway left in their budgets, and a lot of people are left wondering what to do. And here's another report here. A new report finds this is that new home sales in the GTA in July were the lowest level seen in decades. The markets are collapsing, and with that, property values are collapsing. And if your mortgage is now higher than the property value, if you bought that house in the COVID time, and you can't make the mortgage payments, so a lot of people are going to start walking away, which is just going to fuel this crisis. And Pierre Poilievre, and I believe rightfully so here, it says he would fire the Bank of Canada governor. I believe, like when Tiff Macklem is the #1 financial voice in Canada, when he said that, and also he said a lot of other stuff, that inflation was transitory and all those things, and he's now denying that we're in a recession, and he won't lower those interest rates anymore. He's causing a lot of pain for the regular Canadian, and of course the people with money. This is great. When interest rates went up, if you had lots of money, it was great. It was awesome. I've seen people making where they were making almost nothing on like a $10 million balance in their bank accounts, where they were making almost nothing on that. All of a sudden they were making, $100,000 a year and stuff like that. And, it's if you had money, and then also right now, as things drop, if you have cash, it's a great time to pick up fire sale assets as well. So Tiff Macklem should have to answer for this. And he hasn't answered.
And that's not the first time Poilievre said that. He said that a couple of times, hasn't he, about Macklem? But the truth is, I mean, obviously being the governor of the Bank of Canada is a very difficult job, especially during COVID, the energy crisis, and all sorts of things, Trump tariffs. I mean, you do have to acknowledge the circumstances. They're pretty tough. But still, it is true, isn't it? He hasn't been a great success. I don't think he could claim that, and I don't see many people out there trying to defend him, to be honest. So yeah, it's not been particularly great for old Tiffy.
Poilievre's biggest claim on him or slag on him is that he had Justin Trudeau there in his ear, and then they stolen out money for Trudeau's spending habits, and a lot of that is true as well. But I mean, the damage that has come to the average Canadian in their mortgages and in the rent. Because, when mortgage rates go up, rents go up because people don't rent out their properties for less than they can pay the mortgages. So,
yeah.
Doug Ford's also
Macklem as well. And another thing with Macklem is that he was mealy-mouthed on the carbon tax, wasn't he?
Yeah, he lied about that as well.
And its relationship with the high inflation rate. He was being very circumspect. He's very scared to say anything. He did sort of reluctantly admit that it was contributing to inflation, but I just feel like as a central banker, as like a real sort of leader in economics, should have been pretty easy to find out that the carbon tax and energy like that was having a pretty profound effect on inflation.
We've talked about this young man a few times, the Canadian kid, Jack Chappelle. He does a lot of really good videos, and he did a really good one on the North, but he's done this one on the Canadian economy here. We're going to play a small clip here from Jack Chappelle. He does a lot of research, young guy. Worth listening to, though.
A glorious chart right here. This is a chart from Visual Capitalist comparing real GDP per capita growth from 2014 to 2024. At the top you have Ireland, and this is a totally normal growth when you consider that Ireland decided to become essentially a tax haven for some of the largest corporations in the world during this time. Sure, this may have caused some minor issues there, but hey, at least you get to say that you're home to some of the most beloved Irish corporations like Google and Facebook, Intel, Apple, Microsoft, and Pfizer. And after them you got Poland, who is touting themselves as the beacon of hope for Europe. A little further down you got the United States, which is still growing like crazy despite its large, matured economy. And then right around the Spain and Greece mark is where people from their countries start talking about how horrible their countries' economies are. Yet, these Mediterranean countries, along with their cousin Italy, they have actually done pretty well, all things considered, compared to, well, some of the other countries on this list that we're going to get to. A little bit lower is the nation who is amongst the loudest with saying how screwed their country is, and that is Australia. And then you get a little bit further, you get the UK, Germany, and Mexico, all of which are having a ton of issues right now. And all the way at the bottom, in last place by quite a margin, you have my home country, Canada. And keep in mind, this data was from before the tariffs hit this country. You know, a study out of Yale University said that out of all the tariffs from the United States, Canada will get hurt by far the most. So if you're Canadian and you think that you are at the bottom, trust me, there is still so much further that this country can go down. Now, in my past videos, I either...
You can go watch Jack Chappelle.
He mentioned why Ireland is up there and why that's distorted, but he didn't mention why Canada's there. And I think I could just about see the beginning of the explanation in that document that he was looking at, which is because of immigration. That's the reason that Canada's GDP per capita has grown so slowly. It's because, you know, if you've got a pie that's grown at a certain, you know, pretty low amount every year, and then you invite loads more people to eat that pie, they're going to have less pie, aren't they? And that's basically what's happened in Canada. But that's, I mean, I don't know, maybe he did go on to discuss that, but that's the headline on that. And the other thing I would say is, you look at Poland, everybody's going on about Poland lately being this, like, the greatest country in the world and stuff. But I don't know, the Poles were under the communist boot for so long. They've dragged themselves out of that. There's a lot of room to grow and expand because they were artificially kept back by, you know, communism. But the Poles, they've got some really hard times coming because, like Canada and like lots of other countries, nobody has children in Poland. They're not replacing themselves, so they're screwed. And it's when I look at things like this, I just think almost all of these countries are screwed anyway, because looking down the list here, they've all got sub-replacement level birth rates, so they're all going to suffer.
And we're putting the comments up there, some of them, including the one that says, this guy says that we suck. I don't know if it's you suck or I suck, or, you know, Carney is the best, though. Well, there you go.
Where do we suck? I haven't seen that. Oh, Carney's the best, yeah. Well, Carney, definitely the best at some things. Best at hockey.
And then here's some more data here. This is a press release that just came into us. We may reach out and do an interview with this one. Canadian job share shifts driven by economic uncertainty, and a lot of the recession fears intensify. Canadian job seekers confronting a stark reality. Job security may no longer be guaranteed, and that's what a lot of people are. 77% worry that any job they accept now may be at risk if the economy worsens. 74% are concerned about finding a job during potential or ongoing recession. So over half the job seekers, 53%, expect a recession in the next 12 months, and while 17% believe we're already in it. And if you're in the youth category, you definitely would believe that we're already in it, because unemployment in the 20s. So I mean, that is recessionary territories.
That's where most of this is. When you read the Statistics Canada data, there's not really all that much of interest going on in the core age workers. It's pretty much as it always was, or has been for a number of years. But the young people, like the ones fresh out of university and high school and whatever, they're facing a horror show, aren't they? It's really, really bad, and it's dragging the average right down.
We got more on that in a bit later here in the show. But from Blacklocks this morning, you're only going to get this from Blacklocks. It's like details of the federal aid are being censored by the Department of Finance. The department, in an access to information memo, concealed budget line items listing Canada's $22 billion in aid, but predicted Ukraine's post-war recovery will take 10 years and more than $500 billion. Canada has provided the highest per capita financial support to Ukraine in the G7. It's always the virtue signaling where we do really good at. And that's from the memo prepared for Francois Philippe Champagne. Transfers included financial, humanitarian, and other support to Ukraine. And the memo was obtained from yesterday by Conservative MP Kelly McCauley from Edmonton West. So the memo noted Ukraine is reliant on foreign aid that will total $162 billion. If the war extends into 2026, post-war reconstruction will take 10 years and more than $500 billion, right? So, but
that sounds like an understatement, I would say.
I'd say that as well. But again, the documents that they provided were all blacked out, all redacted. So why would they need to redact it?
It's astonishing, isn't it? Because it's an access to information, it's like a freedom of information request by Canadian citizens who are trying to figure out and tell other Canadian citizens what the government has been doing with the money that it's taken off Canadian citizens. And the government just says, "Nah, I'm not telling you that." It's when you simplify it like that, it's craziness, isn't it? And they as their excuse they say, because it might affect international relations.
Another one here from Hollydone at Blacklocks there is here, you're going to love this one. Canada Revenue Agency managers enjoy watching daytime TV in business hours and do not have to account for their time, according to evidence in Labour board hearing. Sports were popular. And then the evidence came on a complaint by a 71,000-year officer threatened with one-day suspension for watching World Cup soccer work. He brought an antenna, I guess that's how it stood out, right, into the CRA office there and connected to a television in the boardroom on the 6th floor to enable employees to watch a World Cup soccer game scheduled during working hours. Well, I mean, that's unfair to have World Cup playing during working hours, right?
Got a one-day suspension, which was later revoked.
So he got paid for that. The Revenue Agency has denied senior staff watch TV following the 2013 Commons tabling of inquiry. Ministry that disclosed the management spent $439,000 on new television sets. It's the second largest expenditure of its kind in the federal department. You have to ask where the money to blow on TVs comes from. That was from Charlie Angus. And Charlie Angus. What kind of value are Canadians getting for money? We want to see how the money is spent. The government is telling everybody the cupboard is bare. Yet we have an enormous amount of spending within the bureaucracy that never seems to make it to the frontline services. Hey, they also cut off Netflix services in a bunch of other government agencies because they were binge watching Netflix. So if they get to work from home, then nobody's going to find out. So we're going to talk about that later as well. And I'm going to do an interview with Dan Elbis on this one here. He's called in, but Canadian Airlines cannot refuse passengers compensation for poor service under the guise of safety compliance, and that's from the Federal Court of Appeal. The landmark ruling came in the case of an Ottawa businessman whose WestJet flight from Regina was canceled due to staffing shortages. Disruption resulting from crew shortage should not be considered to fall in within the safety category, because they get to do that when there's, like hail or something like that, weather events, and that they get to do that, but they're trying to expand, obviously, on what they can call an act of God. The WestJet denied his $1,000 compensation under the 2019 Air Passenger Protection Regulations, stating abrupt crew shortages were a safety issue beyond its control. The airline was mistaken, said the court.
Airlines. Does anybody love airlines? Their reputation is just absolute dirt, isn't it? The way they treat people when your flight gets cancelled. But I guess they just don't care because they tend to monopolize routes, don't they? So they're not bothered. You don't have an alternative.
I would say when WestJet was privately owned by Clive and I can't remember the other guy's name right now. Clive is a local guy here, right? And No, sorry, his partner is the local. Anyway, and then they sold out to a hedge fund, and it basically became Air Canada 2.0. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that, what they feel, but I mean, flying nowadays on WestJet or Air Canada, you don't really see much difference.
It's a duopoly, isn't it? I think it's fair to say. I don't think that's a particularly controversial statement. And it's one of many duopolies and monopolies in this economy, as we've discussed previously.
And then we talked about it yesterday, that they put out a press release, Canada Post, record quarterly loss. And they expected to do better, though. They expected, because they were doing that appeal, that patriotic appeal, shop Canadian, ship Canadian. And they thought that would kind of like help them, but it didn't. Losses, right now they're saying they're going to record its steepest pre-tax loss to date in 2020, despite that patriotic appeal. Losses would clip last year's $841 million shortfall. Canada Post is on track to post its 8th consecutive loss. 8 consecutive losses. Pre-tax losses in the first year, $448 million. The post office last winter launched a Shop Canadian, Ship Canadian campaign to promote its deliveries over rivals like Amazon and FedEx. And they really need to rethink Canada Post. They need to make it relevant. Management signaled it would seek urgent aid from Cabinet after receiving, you're not going to like this number, $1 billion line of credit last January. That's a nice number, eh? Can we get that? Can we get just a small fraction?
I'm just laughing at Shop Canadian, Ship Canadian in light of the deal to buy non-Canadian ships.
Yeah.
It's quite amusing, isn't it? For that exact sum of money there as well, $1 billion.
Someone should ship that notice to Gregor Robertson and Chrystia Freeland. Both of them involved in that, because Chrystia Freeland is the Ministry of Transportation, and Gregor Robertson, for some strange reason, the Canada Infrastructure Bank is underneath him, and he's the Minister of Housing. And both of them, when they were doing this finger pointing, just like, well, I don't know. And then they're finger pointing at EB, and he said he said there was no money in there. Just a great lesson in finger pointing. Retailers, we talk about shipping. Retailers bracing for impact as U.S. will start charging for low-value imports on Friday. And they're saying that, because it used to be kind of like it was okay, anything $800 and under on the declared value when you're shipping something. But it sounds like right now they're going to start charging. And then I've seen out there that many countries have stopped shipping parcels to the U.S. because of this, because it's all going to get caught up in this. I don't even know how they're going to do it with all the parcels. They're going to, like small parcels are going to get nailed with a tariff when they come in.
Yeah, well, people have been... At first, when this was announced, people said it's the death of Temu and those like cheap Chinese shippers, because they tend to do that, don't they? Like underneath that $800 limit.
Yeah.
But now people have started to realize that there are a lot of people, and it's particularly kind of creative people that make art or something, or like ceramics or whatever it is, and they sell on websites like eBay and Etsy and all the rest of it. They sell. Because America is such a giant consumer, they sell like more than half of their stuff to the Americans by and large. And this, again, is not just Canada. So many people have their own little businesses. And if you go on Etsy, you'll see exactly what I mean. And they're all now saying that their business model is basically dead. So I feel quite sad for them, because it's quite a cool thing, isn't it? That you can just sit in your house and kind of, I don't know, do whatever it is, like make necklaces or something, and then sell it to in part the Americans, and now that's kind of going to be impossible.
A lot of people make money just out of being drop shippers. They actually have it manufactured in China, and they're just reselling it on Amazon or something like that. And that's the business model. The Danes summoned the U.S. diplomat over reports Americans are conducting secret ops in Greenland. So Denmark has summoned the U.S. top diplomat after the Scandinavian country's intelligence agency reportedly said American citizens have been conducting secret operations in Greenland. Danish Forest Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen said it's not surprising that there have been outside attempts to influence the future of Greenland.
Crazy, isn't it? Like, who thought we would see something like that?
You would think you'd stick out like a sore thumb in Greenland. Like, how many people are there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, about 50,000 is the population, I think. But
very many.
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah. going. I mean, there was that story, wasn't there? Where was it when Donald Trump's son was there or something that they were like knocking on doors and trying to give them American flags and stuff. But yeah, I don't think you can keep secrets in, at least in the sort of towns or villages in Greenland. Surely everybody knows everybody.
Looks like they were having a paint sale there too, like Silver Star.
Yeah. Well,
My house
got to bring a bit of color in, otherwise
My
you'd
house-
be.
My house is different than yours. It's a different color. And this one, parents accused ChatGPT of encouraging their teenage son to kill himself. The parents of the 16-year-old boy who took his life sued the tech firm OpenAI, alleging their world-famous chatbot, ChatGPT, encouraged their son to kill himself. Adam presented his suicide plan to ChatGPT, which responded, "Thanks for being real about it. You don't have to sugarcoat it with me. I know what you're asking, and I won't look away from it." So OpenAI says it's reviewing the case.
Yeah, awful.
And here you go. You're looking for a new house. You can go back there. A Scottish castle on the island of, you tell me the name. And the island of what? Hebrides?
Let's have a look. I need to see it. Oh, the Hebrides. The Hebrides.
There you go.
It's like off the west coast of Scotland. There's a series of islands, inner Hebrides and outer Hebrides.
I can't show that one to my wife because she said, let's sell our house here in Kelowna and go there. Because what people don't see when this thing is offered up for £750,000, about 1.4 million Canadian dollars, is the amount of work that you're going to have to pour in it, because it's probably damp, dark, and with like bad plumbing, bad electrical, bad almost everything, and vast, like huge, monstrous.
Yeah, you would need staff, realistically, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Or you could be in one of those turrets. They're like the Rook Castle there.
I mean, it's cool. It's just because this is something that, to go back to Pierre Poilievre, he's said this a number of times, hasn't he? He's like, you can buy a Scottish castle for the price of, he likes to do that, doesn't he? It's like, yeah, well, here you go. You actually can. But it will take an insane amount of work, and you probably won't be happy at the end of it.
I've watched a few YouTube videos where a couple will buy one of these manors. It's not a castle like this, a manor, which is maybe half the size of this, and they got it for a song, but the amount of money they pour into it is just cheaper to start with this bare dirt. And and this is the thing, like if a company did this and they advertised one of their features, let's just take Tesla for an example. If Tesla was advertising that how their door handles work, and that was their biggest thing they were pushing out there, you would say there's nothing else going on. Is that all you got, is a door handle to advertise? And here it is, the Liberal Party putting this out, and you have to ask, is this all you got? Is this it? This is what you're pumping? This summer, the new Canada Strong Pass helped Canadians save money. A 15% spike in attendance after doling out that coupon. Basically a coupon. Your kids get to go in free, but you had to pay.
And is it really just, is that not mixing up cause and effect a little bit there, perhaps? Have they really done the research to find out that it was because of this pass? Or is it maybe because people have chosen to stay home and not go to America this year?
Yeah. That's what I mean. So, but if this doesn't even matter, the real reason, this is it. This is success. This is the success story that you have to show Canadians after all the talk about how you're going to build Canada better, and you've given them $1 billion to the Chinese government to build ferries. This is it. This is it.
And that's before you look at missed opportunities now that are literally acknowledged now by the Liberal Party, by the federal government, that they missed opportunities on LNG. It's before you even dig into that kind of thing.
And this one here, we did this story. It's on our site, and this is we actually interviewed Jeremy Heighton from the BIA-BC on some of the stats out there. 74% of business in BC, 74% of business say the conditions have increased for fear and anxiety for staff. 67 businesses surveyed said the street disorder has increased in the past, and then 1 in 5 businesses say they likely won't even make it past next year. And then Steve went out and talked to the DKA as well, talked to Paula Quinn here, and she didn't pull any punches either. She said they're seeing increased drug and mental health related activity, more homelessness encampments, broken windows, doors, theft, violence, aggression, persistent crime, vandalism, street disorder, and on and on and on. And we did many stories in the past too, like on a pizza place that had its windows broken. Like somebody breaks out their main window, costs $1,000 for the window because they wanted that Coca-Cola that they could see in the inside the store there. And the sad reality is the consequences of their action for breaking that window and getting that can of Coke is better than their current situation. They get caught, even willingly get caught, and then they get like at least one meal, and then they get a warm place to lay down for a bit, and then they get turfed back out there, but the business, the insurance, their deductible doesn't cover it. So like that one pizza place we did the story on in the Mission there. 3 windows, I think, in 6 months. So $3,000. You gotta sell a lot of pizza to make up for that. We got a small clip here to play from Jeremy Heighton here, from the BIA BC.
And social disruption. And the reality is, businesses in BC are saying it's time for change. 67% of respondents in a recent survey said that street disorders increased over the past year. And specifically, they're citing open drug use, mental health crises, vandalism, and encampments throughout their cities. And so this basically shows us that there is an issue with street management in the province of BC. There is no interagency or interdepartmental communication.
You can go watch that interview on this channel that you're watching right now. If you're on our Now Media channel, you can also go on Clone It Down. You can read the story. I think the story is done very well as that video is embedded within the story. And they're definitely not pulling their punches. And I asked that question, like, in the past, everybody was too scared to really say anything. And then we're going to reach out to the BC NDP and see if they have a response to this, and also to the city of Kelowna. But I mean, a lot of this is problems and issues to do with the decriminalization of drugs, and again, immigration's related to immigration, because like we talked yesterday, a lot of the people in the homeless shelters in Vancouver are immigrants that have displaced many of the Canadians, and where the Canadians out on the trails and in alcoves and different places, and it's just a shame. And this is a Vancouver Sun did a piece here. John Horgan approved BC NDP could be fiscally responsible. David Eby not hanging on to that legacy, though. I mean, BC's into record territory for debt, and it doesn't seem.
You're talking about street safety, public safety, and all that. David Eby promised to you in that interview, or to us as an outlet, and to the entire sort of electorate in BC, that he was going to fix that. He said it got out of hand. He basically said, "Yeah, I've been a bit stupid. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm going to fix public safety," didn't he? It seems so long ago now, but he said that, and never mind being fiscally responsible. That's another thing that he's promised to be.
Well, I've been promising an interview with the finance minister, Brenda Bailey, on I think on September 15th, 16th, when they do the update for the budget. So that should be an interesting interview. Again, this small media outlet, Down Now Media, does a lot of work and done a lot of national stories, and we hope you like what we're doing here. We have access to Holly Dome Blacklock story, and that you're not going to get anywhere else. And we also have a lot of stories that we do, original stories here, and we don't get any in the budget that the CBC gets. $1.55 billion. Not bad, hey? Not bad. Sam Cooper.
Powerful.
Sam Cooper does a lot of good work too, and he's in Vancouver, one of the local journalists as well. There's a lot of good journalists out there, but I got a small clip here, and this is inside the Falkland, BC Superlad bust. Here, let's listen to what Sam Cooper's uncovered here, just a small clip of it.
In a bombshell investigation that's rattled both Ottawa and Washington, Canadian journalist Sam Cooper has uncovered what U.S. officials are calling one of the most consequential policing failures in recent history. At the heart of the scandal is a fentanyl superlab hidden in the mountains of British Columbia, capable of producing tens of millions of lethal doses, and a Canadian federal police force that repeatedly refused to cooperate with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Cooper's reporting reveals that the DEA provided intelligence to the RCMP in 2022, warning of shipments from China tied to a Health Canada licensed firm. Despite this, Canadian authorities refused to act until after the U.S. Treasury imposed sanctions a year later. Even then, the RCMP ran its own investigation, refusing to coordinate with U.S. agents who had developed the original case. In a bombshell investigation.
So that Falkland bust was originally from the U.S. They sure took a lot of credit for it.
And this never goes away, does it? I think this seems to have been like a very, very significant event in recent history, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you go find that on Sam Cooper, there's a lot more that's disclosed there. It's well worth your time to go watch again. And if you're on X, follow Sam Cooper, it's well worth watching and following one of the people that's actually holding the NDP to account here in British Columbia. It's like the journalists. I mean, a lot of people complain. We're going to try and do an interview with a few of these X people. They say, that there's a conspiracy out there, like all the outlets put out this, and we were one of them, that put out these press releases or these stories that all seem to be the same. They'll cut and paste and they'll show like 6 outlets putting out this thing. That's the Canadian press feed, and a lot of outlets subscribe to that CP feed. And, and those stories tend to be more left than anything. And, like a lot of them, people didn't trust them. But, I mean, you used to rewrite a lot of the headlines that CP put out because, they were so bad. And
yeah, pretty weak, to be honest. I would say they're left liberal. They're on the left side of liberalism, Canadian press, just like every other outlet in Canada, basically.
But it's the key thing. It's not a conspiracy. All the outlets are going through and trying to rehash stories. They've been crippled by things like Bill C-18, where they rely on CP. So then, instead of like having their own journalists do these stories, they just buy the CP feed, and like half their stories, like if you go on many outlets, half their stories are from CP. And if you look at CTV, not only do they regurgitate CP stuff, they also do Associated Press, Reuters. Most of their stories come from feeds, which are, like easier to kind of influence, like CP, Reuters, AP. And here goes CBC. CBC has ignored an order from the Information Commissioner demanding they disclose the subscriber numbers for their CBC Gem streaming service, which they get money for. How many people watching it? Do you know of anybody that watches Gem? Because I sure don't.
No. I'm sure there's somebody. There must be someone.
Well, who watches? The guys that work for the government, they're watching. Actually, they probably don't, right? They're probably watching sports. But yeah, so they don't want to disclose it, because if you probably have to disclose the amount of money that they get for Gem next to who's watching Gem, it's not going to look good. And they're going to say, it's not in the interest of the Canadian taxpayer to see how badly they've used your tax dollars. All this is going to do is cause people to complain. That's what they said about when they gave themselves a raise. When Catherine Tate there, she said, like, we shouldn't do bonuses, so we just added onto the pay, because Canadian taxpayers are not really have an appetite for large bonuses for CBC. So they just took the bonus and just put it onto their salary. And then no more bonuses.
A permanent bonus.
Permanent bonus, yeah. So then, hey, the Canadian taxpayer, does everybody feel better now? Because that's what happened. So as long as you feel better about it, that's great. And here's one. City of Ottawa require, and this is a thing that's starting to go around, City of Ottawa require all employees in the office 5 days a week starting in January. And here's some reaction for you. Forcing workers to commute into the office 5 days a week rather than offering some modest flexible work arrangements, giving employees a choice, is a poor decision of quality, life, productivity. Of course, people that have enjoyed this for the past, what is it now, 5 years almost?
Yeah. A bit longer. Yeah.
The federal thing is still 3 days a week. And we did that story back in December that the D&D, only 80% of them didn't even show up for the mandated 3 days a week.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say in the defense of a lot of these people is that even just in the last 5 years, let's call it 5 years for the time scale that it's been happening, the infrastructure in Ottawa, particularly the highway, there's one main highway in Ottawa that everybody has to use to get downtown. It's just deteriorated to such an extent that it's almost unusable. So I feel like, you go for a drive on like Sunday morning or something, or like Tuesday at 11 a.m. and you just cannot move on this highway. It's so crazy and congested. And then they have this like light rail system that doesn't really work and doesn't go to most of the suburbs. So I feel like a lot of people are probably justified in saying, like, this is not fair. Like, the infrastructure is inadequate to support the amount of people that live in Ottawa. Well, and that's probably true in other parts of Canada as well, isn't it?
Stephen Guilbeault famously said that the federal government will not spend any more money on roads because we don't need them.
Well, that's just a way. They say similar things in Ottawa as well. It's just a way to kind of, if you're a failure and if you failed to maintain infrastructure and it's your fault, what better excuse do you have than, oh, I was just trying to save the planet. That's why I didn't make sure that the roads worked, because the planet depends on them.
Here's some job watch data this Michelle Rempel-Gardner has put out here. Calgary unemployment, 7.7%. The Alberta youth employment, 20%. But at Calgary, Tim Hortons wants to fill a job for temporary foreign workers at $36 an hour. And the Liberals are going to let them. It's a pretty good deal, eh?
Yeah, mad. Yeah, you see things like this in America as well, don't you? Like they go on about H-1B and how it's like the best and the brightest, and then in America they publish them all. You just see the kind of jobs that are being. It's stuff like this, like fast food.
If you go watch that full Jack Chappelle interview, it'll talk about what I've talked about many times: is that world organizations have accused Canada's immigration policies to modern-day slavery to get in a bunch of a few businesses have been campaigning hard to get cheap labor so that they don't have to pay, a labor that, because it's a demand supply thing. So if there's you have to pay more to get people to do the jobs you don't think they'll do. But so they just scream for more, cheap labor. And they got it. They got just tons
of it. Part of the class war, isn't it? That's been going on for so long and has gone on so successfully.
And, and here's the thing, a new report out of CIBC says the current youth unemployment rate is at levels typically only seen during recessions. 20%.
As other age groups face more resilient market, yeah, which is what I was saying earlier. It's really focused on young people, and that is a story of immigration for sure.
I think you need to put your name in for the interview, and then we'll send you there because you're out there in Ottawa. Because coming November 16th, mark it on your calendar, Kamala Harris is on her speaking tour.
Please don't ask me to do that. No.
What was the book called? 107 Days or something? Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah. I
got a new headline for it, though.
I feel very vulnerable in her, listening to her, and I think I would feel very vulnerable in her presence. It's like a kind of audio torture, like scratching a blackboard with your fingernails or something like that. I just can't have it. Sorry.
How much did she spend? How many billions did they spend?
God knows. I think it was over
107
$1 billion,
days, right? What's that?
It was over $1 billion for sure.
It was, I think 1.5.
Let's have a look. Oh no! I made the mistake of going on Google. Don't do that. Don't make that mistake.
You don't want to do that on Google, right? So it was 107 days and over $1 billion. It was, and she spent over $1 billion and ended up with 1.8 million cash in hand. But there's talk that she owes money as well, and
so 1.2 billion apparently.
Oprah
That's
Winfrey.
What they raised anyway.
Yeah, Oprah Winfrey was there. She took a little piece of that, a couple million, right? And then
What's
Beyonce,
a couple million among friends?
And Beyonce took some cash. So I don't know what is this is going to be like. How I spent 100. That's what the title should be. How I blew over $1 billion in 107 days.
With her, like with a cigar, holding $100 bills.
That money machine where they have that like this. Everybody
Definitely.
wins. Everybody wins except Kamala Harris. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Like some of her videos that she's done there with her, like I don't know if she's been a couple of sheets that are like a little bit too much sauce or whatever, but she definitely is not the most entertaining person to talk about. Somebody's asking how much did Trump spend. He spent a lot less. A lot less.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He also was on about the 417, and the answer is yes.
What's
Okay,
that?
the Queensway. He's asked about highway in Ottawa, which is called the 417, which just doesn't work as a piece of infrastructure. If people complain about the 97 in Kelowna, like I wish Ottawa had the 97.
So according to this, Trump spent $313 million on media. Where's the total? He raised only $391 million.
Most of that from Elon, I assume.
I don't know. But then the Republicans spend money. I don't know. You just have to go through this. Ad spending from whatever, 993 million. That's all Republican ad spending.
It's just absolutely insane.
Apparently,
What
I've heard many times is that he spent half of what she spent. I mean, what she spent, like a record amount. Anyway.
Yeah, so according to one source here, the two of them combined spent 2.6 billion, but he spent just under 1 billion.
Elon Musk has put this out, so he's actually putting his. You'll know more about this than I do. He's putting his weight now behind this advance party. This is he's retweeted this clip here of that young girl that defended herself there with an axe and a knife.
I mean, it's a very I feel like people have got ahead of themselves a bit. We don't know really what happened here, but it is very shocking, isn't it, to see a young girl with two weapons of war there. But it's also like, as is often the case, really, it's not about this individual situation. It's about what it represents, I think, and what it represents is a pretty relentless stream of particularly sexual assault from particularly illegal immigrants who've come over the English Channel from France on those little inflatable boats, on the dinghies. And I just think the British people have just sort of lost their minds, really. They're so sick of it. They've been asking for so many years to stop this. And now this has come along and it's being used as a kind, like, whether or not the story as it's presented is true or not. I mean, we'll find out because it's in court. But it doesn't even matter. It's just being used as a symbol. And obviously, Elon is he's in there, isn't he? And he's using very dramatic language, isn't he?
Oh. He's put his weight behind Advance UK, and he says Farage is a weak sauce who will do nothing. So Nigel Farage, I mean, you know these characters better than most.
Well, Nigel Farage yesterday came out and said he is in favor of mass deportations of 600,000 people over 5 years. And that's what a lot of this is a reaction to, because Farage has been he's kind of lost some of his own followers to the likes of this Advance thing, which is an old Farage ally. And then there's another one run by Rupert Law, who you see his name is mentioned there. That one's called Restore. It's kind of fracturing on the right, and it's because reform is deemed to be too soft by some people, and obviously that includes now Elon Musk. But reform, if you look at the polls, reform is on. If an election were held today in Britain, Nigel Farage would become prime minister. So that's what they say, the reform people.
Keir's trying to talk tough now too about he's got a lot of ads up now talking about how you'll be deported, but his actions are different. Like you say many times, watch the actions, not the words. Like his words say one thing, but the actions are another.
Well, also his entire life has been devoted to not doing that. His entire career, his entire political life, it's not what he believes in. He can see the same polls that we can, and he sees that the British people are absolutely furious about immigration, and he can see that the British people look like they're going to elect Nigel Farage as prime minister. So the Conservative Party in Britain is in disarray. They're almost irrelevant. So Keir Starmer now just looks at Nigel Farage and says, oh crap, like I'm going to have to sound like him, otherwise I'm going to be mincemeat. So as an opportunist,
not much different than Mark Carney. Not much different than Mark Carney adopted a lot of
very similar, yeah.
Right? They took away the ammo, but I don't know. Yeah, Keir Starmer seems very weak to me, and I think the English people are probably at a boiling point, way past where Canada is right now. I think.
Yeah, way past.
Canada's still got that thing where they're just like, oh, it's still okay. Like a lot, especially the baby boomers and the guys on here defending Mark Carney and that. Like they're still into this. But you listen to a guy here that said that he's 75 collecting beer cans at 7 a.m. from 3 a.m. to 11, and then frustrated that immigrants getting $82,000 a year is why he has to go out and collect beer cans to survive. Like that. That's where that this is going. But England is way further along in their anger on these issues.
Totally, and a lot of it is concentrated on immigration, but it's not just that. Like, the standard of living has collapsed in Britain for various reasons, one of which is the fanatical devotion to net zero and quite literally blowing up, like detonating power stations, like fossil fuel power stations, so that they can't be sort of repurposed and used again, so that you're forced to have wind turbines, which obviously cost an enormous amount of money in subsidies.
Yeah. I just want to look at something here. Somebody is saying that Dr. Wally there had a comment there about hydrogen. And, like for me, hydrogen, if you just have to go look at the Canadian stock, that is the hydrogen bellwether here in Canada, Ballard. I've invested in Ballard in the past and sold out there. And if you want to talk about the future of hydrogen, go look at Ballard's stock chart. That's the future of hydrogen. And, it's nasty. So Dr. Wally Barthe, poster child for green hydrogen. Hydrogen still takes more energy to create it than it gets for you. It's inefficient, and really hydrogen acts as a battery. It's right now, I mean, you take LNG or you take excess electricity and turn it into hydrogen, but hydrogen has so many other issues with it. Elon Musk has a lot to say about hydrogen as well, and none of it good. Speaking of Elon Musk again, this is not a lot of people are watching. This is what gives you faith in society again. Look at this thing here. We got the liftoff of Starship. Let's play this clip here.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Vehicle pitching downrange.
Booster chamber pressure nominal.
Yeah, so that's the Raptor motors on there. And then this is a reusable rocket. This is Starship. This is from SpaceX. And that's both the booster and the rocket comes back to Earth. And compared to the Apollo programs, the Saturn V, it was built to get to the moon and back, no reuse. And it flew 13 missions, 67 and 73. And Starship can carry 100+ people. Anyway, they put, Elon Musk loves to be like a comedian a little bit. He got Starship up there in orbit, and then the command was, Hal, open the bay doors. If you can remember the Odyssey space mission with Hal. So they were doing a kind of like a mock-up of deploying Starlink satellites, and Hal opened the bay doors and ejected some mock-up Starlink satellites, right?
And he didn't kill everyone, so that's a bonus.
Well, there's nobody on this ship, but Hal. Yeah. So
sorry, it's a spoiler, isn't it? Maybe somebody hasn't seen the film.
And let's do crackers. Let's get cracking. Cracker Barrel decided to, this might have been the great marketing scheme. Cracker Barrel, the CEO, Julie there, decided to change she wanted to get all woke and change the Cracker Barrel logo from Old Country Store to Cracker Barrel. And the stock got hammered. And, even Donald Trump jumped in on it. And guess what, though? Cracker Barrel says the next one, we thank our guests for sharing your voices and love for Cracker Barrel, and said we would listen. Our new logo is going away, and we're bringing back the old Cracker Barrel logo. It reminds me of Coca-Cola. Remember when Coca-Cola went to New Coke? They did that rebrand, and they did New Coke. And they got all this attention, because Pepsi and Coke used to spend a ton of money going after each other, right? And so they just rebranded this new Coke, new recipe and all that stuff. And backlash caused them to keep the new Coke and the old Coke. And they ended up with twice the shelf space. And, some people later said, wow, what a brilliant move. And maybe this is it, because if you look at the stock chart of old Cracker Barrel there, and pull it up, sooner or later, is it coming?
Terrible. Wow.
There you go. And there you go. So there's the new logo and the precipitous drop. And there's like, and we're going back to the old logo. And there you go. So Cracker Barrel got himself a lot of free attention with this, you could say, this
true.
misstep, or maybe a really well-planned event. If I was Julie, I'd start taking credit for it before they start asking for your job. If I was Julie, I'd say, this is one of the best marketing events that we've ever done. We even got the attention of the United States president.
But what's woke about the new one? Is it just because it doesn't have the word country in it anymore? Is that it?
Well, the new one doesn't have the old man.
Right. So old men are out in the new woke utopia.
Apparently.
Or is it the barrel? Does the barrel offend people? I just don't get it. My observation is like purely aesthetic. Like look how ugly that new one is. It's just like a weird sort of shape with the words Cracker Barrel in there. It's just so boring and lifeless. Whereas whatever you might feel about the other one, maybe it's a bit overdone or something, but at least it's got something to look at. It's got a barrel. It's got a man on a chair.
I can tell you right now,
That's
there's marketing outlets right now looking at that. How do we get attention to our brand? Like, look at what they did with Sydney Sweeney. Like, I mean, Sydney Sweeney is a household name because of, the reaction that they got.
Well, she's pretty easy to employ, it seems like. She's done loads of ads.
That's
so
what I mean.
that's
She's
probably what they should
now.
do. Just get her on.
Yeah, put her next to, get rid of the old man, put Sydney Sweeney next to the Cracker Barrel. We did the interview with Jeff Evely, the guy that walked in the forest there in Nova Scotia and got to himself that $25,000 fine plus another $3,000. Like, don't forget James O'Keefe there. You're going to get another, I think it's like $3,800 in what's called victim services fees and taxes that get added on there. So it's not just 25 grand. The fine is 25 plus, some other fees. But James O'Keefe has got attention to him. He ran that, what was that show that Veritas Group, right? And he got fired from the Veritas Group.
Yeah.
And then, but he's up here trying to get some attention. He's got like 2 million followers on X. So he's doing this. We're going to play a small clip with James O'Keefe here trying to get some attention.
OMG, and this is walking into the Canada woods on purpose for a $25,000 fine. There it is right there. Stay out of the woods. $25,000 fine. Oh, there's a DSLR worker. There's a worker right there. What happens if we go in there? $3,000 fine. We don't have anything to start a fire, though.
Doesn't matter. You want to break the law,
So here in Nova Scotia, they've actually banned hiking due to a burn ban. They're going to fine you $25,000. We're going hiking in Canada. Let's see what happens. There's also a bunch of Karens walking along the boardwalk. A lot of snitches. Snitches get stitches.
I saw these two gentlemen. They're gone in the woods. They have backpacks. Okay, I'll send the officers out here shortly. Thanks for calling. All right, thank you.
Cape Breton Regional Police, just arrived.
So we've arrived in Nova Scotia.
That's good. That's good. You can go watch the whole thing if you're so interested. You can find James O'Keefe on the X. And you can watch him there. Obviously, he's trying to get some attention there. That's what they look for.
I mean, it's civil disobedience, isn't it? This looks a little bit crass and sort of commercialized, but whatever. I mean, civil disobedience has been crucial throughout history, really, hasn't it? For trying to push a just cause. And,
New Brunswick just pulled
I
back
don't think
there.
it's controversial to say this is a just cause, isn't it? Trying to push for the right to walk in the woods, for God's sake.
New Brunswick pulled back. You're allowed to walk in the bush in New Brunswick now. Nova Scotia still has it in effect. But New Brunswick has pulled it, I think, today. So you can go back into the bush.
It's just, it's absurd. It's completely nuts. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to be hearing about how everybody involved in this decision was actually not responsible for it. It's going to be one of those, isn't it? Where it's like, oh no, it wasn't me, mate.
Well,
this is just craziness.
We talked about it the other day, how the firemen's union said, this is not climate change, guys. This is caused by mismanagement of the forests. This is government mismanagement of the forest. We hear that here. It's the same thing here in British Columbia. Mismanagement, no mitigation. And the forestry services, and we've done so many stories on forestry here and interviewed so many people on forestry. And that they finally, in an interview that we did with David Eby there, he talked about it too, that they need to do better. And so they put together a task force or a committee and of people, talking about management of the forest. And what was the reaction from industry? Not enough representation. You know what I mean? So they have all these groups in there that really have nothing to do with forestry. And all of a sudden, the people that you could help manage it, because the people that are actually going to manage the forest are going to be the forestry companies, right, with cut blocks and different things. So, cut blocks is what, like fires stop when you take the fuel away. If there's fuel.
But talking about mismanagement, I mean, just in a philosophical, political sense, like if we could just invite Plato to come here and have a conversation with us. This is mismanagement of power, isn't it? This is abuse of power. It doesn't matter what you think's going on or what you think you can do. You don't tell a population of your polity that they can't go into the trees in case they start a fire. That's just like presumption of guilt. It's like you can't go in there because I'm just going to presume ahead of time that you were too stupid to go for a walk without setting off a fire. I just find it it's one of those occasions where the leadership class just transparently insults the population that they rule over.
Hey, here's a good comment here from, I think the guy says, "Give me liberty," that's his username. The guy that talked to James O'Keefe there, remember he rolled up, a conservation officer rolled up in his quad. And quads have been shown to start fires because they're hot exhaust. So he rolls up in a quad while James O'Keefe is there with his walking sticks. And he says, you could start a fire out there. Meanwhile, he's riding a quad in the bush. And
he also looks like he's off the Cracker Barrel logo, doesn't he? He's I mean, there's a very realistic possibility that he might, lose control of that vehicle.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the Lillooet fire, which they blamed on climate change forever, the RCMP finally took responsibility for that fire by accidentally starting it.
Yep. Well, I mean, cars as well are pretty, they tend to start fires.
But how many times did we listen to how that Lillooet fire was climate change? And then finally the RCMP came forward and said, yeah, that was an accident by us.
But next time they'll make sure to ban hikers in case they start a fire.
Right. Not ban the RCMP.
The RCMP will be there to make sure that you don't hike.
It's like a comedy show, right? The Gamer Liberty puts it out there. It's like, he's sitting on a quad telling you can't go in the forest with your, James O'Keefe's got walking sticks. I'm not sure why, young guy like that needs walking sticks, but whatever.
I don't think there's enough friction to start a fire, though, with the walking sticks.
The comedy is real, and it happens here. That's our show for today.
But you have to, and this is why I sort of applaud the civil disobedience, because you have to resist. I'm sorry to say, like, most people would rather not, and I'm definitely one of those people as well. But when it comes to something as basic as this, the only way you're going to get justice is by resisting. In a case like that, I have to say.
One of the things that Canada, the Trudeau Liberals did really well was squash any types of mass resistance. That Freedom Convoy was an uprising, and them going after bank accounts, freezing bank accounts, and all that kind of stuff. This is the example. This is a huge example. The $250 that the bakery donated from Victoria there on the island. I'm not sure if it was Victoria on the island. Donated $250. They froze her bank account. Basically shut down that business because you can't run a business without a bank account. You just can't. And she donated to a cause that she thought was just, and that's her civil disobedience. They froze her bank account. You think of that, the bank should answer for that. There should be like a class action suit. Like the bank should have to answer for that. Everybody should have. Tiff Macklem should answer to that. I mean, Mark Carney is the one that said this stuff. That was, again, his advice was to go after them financially. That was Mark Carney's advice. Go after them financially. And this is the same guy that people are on here defending, saying, he's the best guy for the job. That he went after that bakery that made a donation of $250. That should be a moment of shame for Canada.
Well, it's abuse of power, isn't it? It's doing too much with the power that's entrusted to you. to the point where you alienate large sections of the population. And sure enough, that's exactly what that did. The reaction to the trucker protest has alienated a huge amount of people in this country. And I don't know how you're ever going to win them back. You know, like they're not coming back to the table. They are so jaded, and they're so disgusted by what happened then. And this is another example of that, where you're gonna drive people crazy.
Yeah, that's our show for today. We appreciate it if you'd like, share, comment, do those things. And a lot of the stories that we do on a daily basis with our newsroom is on colornow.com. And we appreciate you. And we'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Until then, thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding,